Vicky Hartzler. She's spokeswoman for the Coalition to Protect Marriage in Missouri. Vicky, welcome to Issues, Etc.
Thank you, Todd. Glad to be here.
Why does the Missouri State Constitution need to be amended in order to include a definition of marriage that is specified as one man, one woman?
No, because there's activist judges out there that are willing to circumvent the will of the people to advance their own cause of a few. And we have learned that what has happened in Massachusetts, and we don't want to see that same thing happen in our state. Because the people of Massachusetts did not clearly define marriage in their constitution, just a few black-robed officials were able to legislate their own version of what they believed marriage should be and overrode what the citizens of Massachusetts wanted. And so we have to be proactive and learn from what has happened there and also shore up our state constitution, because we're just as vulnerable here as the citizens of Massachusetts were before their court ruling.
Now, that's an important point, one that is not often made and one that is ignored often by those who are opposing Amendment 2, that there is a vulnerability. Respond to someone who says, look, Massachusetts is Massachusetts, Missouri is the heartland. We here in Missouri, don't we have a Defensive Marriage Act? I mean, why do we need to worry about this?
Well, the Constitution trumps state law, and yes, while we have a law declaring that marriage is between a man and a woman, it's not in our Constitution, and so laws can be thrown out. And all it takes is a few liberal judges. And while, yes, we are conservative here in the state, not all of our judges are conservative. And all it would take is one gay couple to go and challenge in a friendly court here in Missouri our state statute, and it could be thrown out. And we can only amend our Constitution every 2 years in the general election unless a governor calls a special election, which doesn't happen hardly ever. And so we can't afford to wait till another 2 years to watch how this plays out. I mean, it's kind of amusing to me how the opponents of Amendment 2 try to say, well, there's not any need. There's not any pending court case. We don't have to do that. Well, that would be foolish to wait until it starts going through the court process to try to amend the Constitution. You need to take advantage of those opportunities every 2 years when they happen to learn from what has happened in other states without the language in their state constitution and take the steps necessary in order to protect marriage.
The St. Louis Post-Dispatch not only published your column, but also side by side with it, one from the Right Reverend George Wayne Smith. He's the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Missouri. Now, his argument, not kind of unique. He says he is entirely in favor of marriage as a man and a woman. The answer to protecting marriage is to protect marriage itself, to encourage greater commitment between men and women, rather than amend the Missouri State Constitution. And then near the end of his con piece for Amendment 2, he insinuates that to vote for the amendment would be to either intentionally or unintentionally encourage hate. Your response?
Oh, that's sad that he took that stance. That's ridiculous. Certainly, there are problems with traditional marriage, things that we need to work on. I say internal forces that are waging war against traditional marriage, such as divorce and adultery and things like that, and those things need to be addressed. But we also need to address the external forces that are waging war against traditional marriage, such as legal challenges and judges who are deciding on their own to redefine marriage and expose us to an untested social experiment. And so the remedy for that is a legal remedy, which is through amending our Constitution to clearly express the will of the people. And that's what needs to be done there. And as far as expressing hate, I just think it's amazing how they're trying to turn logic on its head and say just because you believe in a 5,000-year tradition that has stood the test of time and been the most stabilizing force in every civilization, because you believe that marriage is between a man and woman, that you're hateful. I mean, that is the most ludicrous statement they could use, but yet they have done polling. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of national campaign strategists working on their behalf, and they believe if they throw out the word discrimination and hate enough times that people will believe it, when, in fact, what they're trying to do is hijack the mantle of the civil rights movement in order to advance their own cause. But I think it's going to backfire on them, especially among the African-American community, because they clearly understand what true discrimination is. And as one black civil rights leader from Detroit said, being black is not a lifestyle choice. people understand that there's a difference between a skin color or gender of a person and their sexual preference. Homosexuality is marked by a behavior. It is not an immutable characteristic. It should not be in the same category. And so I, vehemently, reject those arguments.
Vicky, I'm wondering here, you used the term there just a moment ago, and you also use it in your op-ed piece in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, an untested social experiment, as the way you describe gay marriage. What do you mean by that?
Well, we don't know the long-term effects of totally redefining marriage to include anybody who has a loving, committed relationship with each other and conferring on them all the benefits and saying that they're the equivalent. We don't know what that's going to do to children. We don't know what that's going to do to society. It's basically untested, except for the few countries that have had it, and that is the Scandinavian countries of Denmark and Sweden and Norway. And as we have looked at what has happened in their society for the past 10 years, we see that it has not been positive for society. It has further degraded the value of the term marriage, so much so that people aren't even getting married. There's a very high degree of people having children out of wedlock. In some places, it's 70% of the children in Norway do not have a married parents. And there's a skyrocketing amount of disillusion that people don't respect it. It's not as valuable. And so they're leaving those relationships. And you don't want to expose our country or our state to that sort of thing. It hasn't been positive. It hasn't strengthened traditional marriage. It hasn't caused them to be more monogamous, more faithful, less divorce, all those things that they cite are reasons to just throw it out. And so there's no reason to do this. And what we need to do is shore up traditional marriage, protect it from both internal ways as well as external legal challenges facing us.
Now, you talked about this briefly with regard to the attempt on the part of the homosexual activists and the advocates of gay marriage to make a connection with the civil rights movement.
Yes.
But they do say that we would be writing discrimination into the Missouri Constitution if Amendment 2 passed. How is it that defining marriage exclusively as a union between a man and a woman is not discrimination?
Well, the state has a right to make parameters and does all the time for licensure. And when you're talking about this from the civil standpoint, from public policy standpoint, this is a licensing issue, and we have a right to do that. We don't call it discrimination because we don't let 12-year-olds have driver's license or people who are blind. We say that people have to meet certain qualifications. And the legislature, in its wisdom, has said that the qualifications for marriage that have proven to be the most stabilizing force in our society is between a man and a woman. And so they are that is the relationship that we're going to confer benefits on, that we're going to encourage, that we're going to reward. And not that other people can't have their own form of relationships, but we're just not going to call it marriage, and we're not going to encourage it in this state. That is just clearly setting parameters. That is good public policy. And I think it's wise on our part of our legislature in the past to have said this, and we just need to ensure that that remains that way for the future. You don't want to make sure that somebody who hasn't gone to medical school but wears a white lab coat gets a doctor's license. Same way, you just can't say two people live together and they have a loving relationship that they qualify for marriage. They don't. There's a difference. We need to stick with what works.
And how do you respond to someone who said, and this was, I haven't heard it much lately, Vicky, but a little bit more several months ago, people just kind of rhetorically asking, look, gay marriage, let's live and let live. How is it going to hurt your marriage if we allow homosexual couples to marry?
Well, first of all, just generally, it would cheapen the value of it, just like you could say, what does it hurt if I make counterfeit $20 bills? How does it affect your wallet? What it does, if you allow people to make counterfeit $20 bills, it's going to lessen the value of your your genuine $20 bill. And so the same thing happens in your marriage. Your marriage isn't going to mean as much if just anybody can enter it just based on, a loving commitment. But it has bigger implications than that. It has implications for the pocketbook. If same-sex marriage is allowed in our state, I'm concerned about what that's going to do for health care. Health care costs are skyrocketing already. It's prohibitive for many employers even to offer it to their employees. Employees have to pay a lot of money to keep that health care. And as the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force found last year, it is prohibitively expensive, they determined, to offer 100% health care benefits to the partners of their employees, their domestic, their same-sex partners. And they had to reduce those benefits to 50% from 100% because it just simply costs too much. And so if they found that out, certainly the rest of us are going to find that out too. It's going to affect our children, what they're taught in schools. Homosexual marriage would have to be treated exactly like a regular marriage. The stories that are read to our children, the assignments that they're provided in our schools, certainly sex education takes on a whole new light, and it has huge implications for children, for our finances, and just overall for society.
I wonder also if that objection, it won't hurt your marriage, is also a little fallacious because it appeals simply to my own self-interest. Mm-hmm. And you've already made the case here that people, even if their own self-interests are not at stake, society's interests are at stake.
And marriage is bigger than personal benefits and individual desires. I mean, it really is. They try to bring it down to just a one example thing and use anecdotal evidence to say, well, it's not going to hurt. We have a dangerous stretch of highway in the Kansas City area near where I live where I've seen people drive 90 miles an hour zigging in and out of traffic, and they haven't caused an accident. But that doesn't mean that we should change the public policy and the speed limit through that to allow everybody to do the 90 miles an hour, weaving through traffic type of law. And that's what we're talking about here. People will, the opponents will cite one example of, well, what about this loving couple? Don't you think they deserve the, marriage rights, et cetera? Well, maybe they're a fine couple, but that doesn't mean that it's good public policy for the whole state to throw out the definition of traditional marriage that stood the test of time for 5,000 years for an untested social experiment, and that's what they're talking about.
Vicky, two final questions here. First of all, Sylvester Brown Jr. yesterday wrote an op-ed piece in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Maybe it appeared a day or two before that. I'm not sure. But he said, look, the vote on Amendment 2 in August will basically be a test of tolerance. If you vote against it, you will demonstrate yourself to be a tolerant person. If you vote for it, well, you fill in the blank. You'll be intolerant. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would be interested in what his thoughts would be on tolerance if three people say that they want to get married. They have a loving, committed relationship. We deserve, you're being discriminatory against me because you're not giving me marriage rights. Would he approve of that? Would he think it'd be intolerant? How about if 5 people want to get married, or if they wanted to have polygamy, or even if, like the man in Missouri in 1999 who came out and said he wanted to marry his horse and thought he had every right to do it because he loved his horse. I mean, I know that sounds extreme. I mean, we say that's ridiculous, but yet we didn't think we'd be arguing about this 20 years ago. And it's the same argument. There are groups out there willing to advance and ready to advance their cause of group marriage and polygamy using the same tactics that the homosexual activists are using now. So it's not a matter of being intolerant. It's a matter of choosing wise public policy, what is best for future generations and for our state. And I believe that Missourians will side with Amendment 2 and vote for it overwhelmingly next week.
Then finally, we will be voting for it next week and not in November. How much of an effect will the August date for this vote on Amendment 2 be, as opposed to when those who proposed it originally would like to have had it voted on, that is, in the November Maine election?
Right. Well, we'll find out about that. I know we're getting, very energized trying to get the word out, but it is more difficult for us. We haven't had as long to organize as we would have liked and been on the November ballot. Plus, there's a lot fewer people that normally don't vote in August. But I would encourage people, even if they don't align themselves with a political party, which is the purpose of the primary election, you can get a ballot called an issues-only ballot. You don't have to choose a Republican or Democrat or Libertarian ballot. And on that issues-only ballot, it would say just the two constitutional amendments. And so it is imperative that every person who supports traditional marriage get out and vote, because the other side is prepared to storm the polls. They're hoping that, and they think that they can defeat it here in Missouri,